Good morning, Uma, and hello from Nuremberg, Germany. Nice to see you, and nice to have you here for our little program about brushes. What a surprise, we are a brush company. Hello, and very nice to see you. We are in Nuremberg, but you are in California. With us, it's already in the evening. But for you, it's a fresh morning, right?
That is correct. And such an honor to be talking to you and talking about quality products. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you for taking the time. My name is Hermann. I am the managing director of the Vinci Brush Factory. And I am working with this company only since 1985. So I am about 35 years selling, developing brushes, quality brushes. So it's for me always a pleasure to talk to people who really can judge also quality tools for painting and for our trade.
Got it.
So we got your contact from the Urbansketcher community. And of course, we're very happy that you were also keen to work a little bit with us and to test some new brushes we had developed in the last 12 months. The whole Corona problem stopped us from doing a lot of shows or from going to fairs or visiting our customers, but it didn't stop us to make new products and to develop new items. So of course now it's great that we get these into people's hands and they can try them out. And we send you a few, Uma, and I hope you had the chance to test them a little bit.
Oh, I got a good 9 days of working with them, 4 to 5 hours. So they got a good workout and they gave me a good workout themselves.
All right. And I read on your website that you are an artist engineer. And you think this is a perfect combination, right?
Absolutely.
To be artist and engineer in one person?
Absolutely. You can't do better without the other. I'm a better engineer because of art, and I'm a better artist because of my engineering aspects.
Yeah, you know, and our name is Da Vinci. And who could be a better example for an artist engineer than Leonardo da Vinci? And when I was reading that on your page, I was immediately thinking about this because he was not only a painter, he was also, what did he do? You know, bicycles, parachutes, machines for defense, whatever. I mean, our big hero was an artist engineer.
Fantastic. I had not made the connection, so great. That made my day.
Yes, and we call ourselves, if we are asked, what are we doing here? We always say tradition and innovation. We try to make the best out of the tradition about 200-300 years of brush making in our city, which was always the home for brush making in Germany. And of course, to bring in new ideas from the production side, from the material side. And so tradition and innovation also in our company has a very important role.
Understood. Thank you for sharing that.
And we are producers. That's what I think it's also important to know. We are no dealers. We are not making fibers. We are not making handles, but we make the brushes. We mix the fibers together. We try always new fiber developments and put them into products as we think they are correct. Like CASANEO is a mixture of different fibers in different diameters and different lengths, but it's all synthetic fiber. So that's our little part in engineering the brushes.
Wonderful, wonderful. And when we do the review further, I will talk about it, about how, even though it's synthetic, I have completely flipped from natural hair to only CASANEO hair, and it works wonderfully.
Well, I mean, this is a development which started with us about 7-8 years ago. It was harder and harder to get the Kazan squirrel hair. Kazan is a city in Siberia, in the Ural, before Siberia. where these hairs were coming from traditionally. And we had no other chance than to look what are the fiber producers really offering us, and how could we make a perfect brush out of this. That's why we created CASANEO, New Kazan Squirrel Hair. This is the whole idea of the name, and that's how it all came together. And we developed it first from pinstriping brushes, then to the wash mop, which you also know, and then to the quite wide assortment, which is now available in so many different shapes. So it was really a success story during the last years, and we found a lot of friends all over the planet for these kind of brushes, mostly for liquid colors, for watercolors and for acrylic colors, but liquid colors. And they are easy to clean, and they are not so vulnerable as traditional natural squirrel hair.
Got it. And in the 7 years of development, did you spend more time perfecting it, or also were there times when you thought that this was the wrong way to go down of research?
Yeah, well, in the beginning, and always for every brush, of course, you have to check out which lengths you choose for which mixture, and for which size you need what hair length, and so on. So this is a process which is going on. But of course, if you are already having the confidence for a certain brush type, and people like you or other artists approve the result, then you are getting more free, and you are more relieved to go the step forward. I think you said you are an engineer. I think it will not be so much different in your business, will it?
Absolutely. When we do new research, new technology is not completely chalked out, but the confidence of having built something previously tells you that you're probably on the good path.
Yes, and you need, every day you need a little, you need a little approval from other people or from the market, so that you get the strength and the confidence again for the next step.
Yes, customers cake, you're right.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, and of course I have to say I was in the USK meetings in Porto and in Amsterdam myself, and it was, for me, it was the best option and the best possibility to talk a lot to Urbansketchers, to hear what people were asking for, what they were especially looking for. And of course, a lot of the varieties we have now in the assortment were also requests from people which were brought to me, which were asked me, couldn't you do something like that? Wouldn't it be an idea to do something like that? And this is of course also for a brush producer very, very helpful. So every input always makes us better. That's clear.
Understood.
And we were asking you to check a little bit our latest items, which is, one is how can I say, it's a watercolor rigger. It's a traditional bound watercolor brush, our series 490 exactly, but on the same time it's still made as the traditional wash brush, but it has a clearly longer visible hair length, like a rigger normally has in comparison to a watercolor brush. And this was a question mostly from the German market brought to us. And we also had given you and sent you the different lines with the extra short handle, because you are travelers, you are on your way, and if a handle is too long, it's always in the way sometimes to fit it in the bag and so on. So these were more or less the two lines we were asking your opinion about.
Yes, and I did give them a good workout, and I found that they're both very versatile, but I have favorites among them, and I have favorite operating conditions for them where they do the best.
Yes, and that's normal. That's why we have the variety. That's what it should be. Yeah.
Right. Right. So hi, so I'm Uma. I'm Uma Kelkar, originally from Pune. Pune is a city in the west of India, born and brought up there. 20 years ago, I lived in the city for 21 years, and then 21 years exactly ago, I came to the USA to go to school. I'm an electrical engineer from Stanford, and I lost my way away from art for some time. When my children were born, I realized I needed to find something that was super selfish for me, for my heart, which brings me joy, and painting was that. And there are so many similarities between painting and art. They feed off of each other. Just like I don't say on any work day that I'm not in the mood to go to work, so I don't miss work. The same way, when there is a painting canvas in front of me, there is never an artist block. You have an aim, you go for it, you maximize your paper. And over the years, I've realized that I want quality tools because time is short when you're a busy mother and a founder and an engineer. So what quality tools do is reduce the number of pitfalls you will go through before you figure out certain solutions. So if you start off with the best material or best possible material, which already avoid the mistakes, then you are on an engineering path. You've already prevented the small errors that can be. I love experimentation, but there is no reason to put yourself through all the pain before earning some wisdom. So that's why good paper first, and then good brush. And then you really want one good brush. Yeah, one good brush, like it should be like a little black dress.
Yes, but this is what I hear from many artists. I learned a lot from a famous watercolorist here in Nuremberg, Oskar Koller, and he was then always using sable brushes and only a size 16. And he said, you know, Hermann, you dress your size 16 to your hand. And in the end, you only need one brush. Everything else is not necessary. One brush, and this size will be dressed and will be getting used to your hand. And that's all you need. That's what he taught me from the very beginning in my career. So I thought this was always very interesting to follow. Well, just a few technical explanations for the series we are talking about. We have these, CASANEO Series 490 with the extra long hair length. It's available in two sizes. It's a size 0 and a size 2. And CASANEO, I tried to explain before, it's wavy fibers. It's not a straight fiber. It's made of wavy fibers, which is imitating the natural hair, which is not always just one straight line, but is also a little wavy, and which is built up with a rougher surface so that the water can be held better from the natural material. And this is what the man-made fiber, as Uma was writing it so nicely in her blog, is also helping, of course, to keep the water and to control the water so that it's not flowing too fast out of the hair body, because otherwise you would have a lot of color on your paper, but not in control as you would like to have. And on the other side, we have these extra short XS, extra short brushes, which are a series 998 in round, the series 987 as the angled sword shape, and we have the series 986 in the flat shape, which are also available, of course, in more sizes with long handles. But because of the special questions, we made them also with a shorter non-roll hexagonal handles for these version, which, as I said, will be easier to travel, to carry around, and so on. So these are more or less the brushes we talk about. And I am now very curious to see and hear the experiences Uma wants to share with us. That's really interesting for me also to hear now live from her.
Okay. So here are the brushes that I tried. Just like Hermann was saying, this is the XS series. These are much shorter than we are going to use the CASANEO mop as the standard of reference. You can see it's well used because it's been used since 2017. But the reason I compared it here is because it shows you the two main differences. The main differences are in the length, but circumference-wise, they're almost similar. Almost. Also, the head length is a little longer. But I digress. This is one set. And then these are the extra small. And this is one set, which is 490, which are the liners and the riggers. And
yes.
You see the liner and rigger is dry. Therefore, the body looks open. But I'm going to wet them and show you the difference as to how small they really can become. Now, so that's a super point. So if you find your brushes to be that dry, don't be scared. Once you do make them wet, that's how pointed they become. So there are a couple of things that are different between the extra small and the mop. The mop brushes, because of the way the handle is and the weight is front loaded. So when it sits on my brush, it never falls back. I don't have to hold it. It just moves, it flows. It's a real flow brush. When I say a mop, I'm talking about the 498 series because that's the series I started my journey with CASANEO with. Whereas the small brushes, I had to actually hold it. So I was really afraid when I started working with these that I would get fatigued, that I would have to control them more. But then I started making experiments and I found the operating conditions in which they shine. And before now, I had never used a dagger. This is the sword shape that you see. And I had not understood what it was. I had used a round and a square. But let me conclude and then I come back to the explanation. The conclusion is that if between all these three, if you had to pick one, I would pick a dagger. And I'll tell you why. This is an extremely versatile tool. So much so that after this recording is done, I have to drive to Berkeley to give it to another artist who used it for 2 days with me on a study tour. And I had tough time separating her from this brush. So first, before paintings, I'll explain to you the simple tests we did. By the way, all the brushes that we worked with or I worked with, I did something called a drip test. A drip test is where, hang on, you take a brush, you fully charge it. This is fully charged. Fully charged meaning I'm put it in water and I've not dripped anything out of it. So if you look at it, there is water in it. It's not that it's dry. But if it's fully charged and you hold it upside down for 10 seconds, and if it doesn't drip, that means you can control the discharge of water. It's not the brush that's going to control you. So then instead of going to unnamed objects like circles, I went up to actually figuring out motifs, trees with the same brush. This is the round, this is the square. So the round has very defined edges. The square has the variation. Variation gives you delight to the onlooker, the unpredictable nature. Well, the dagger did both, and it did it in a very beautiful manner. So if I had to choose between these three, the dagger worked for me, and it worked for me to the point that it can become versatile. In fact, when I do a demonstration, I will use only a dagger to do a farm scene, and a farm scene because a farm scene is in my head right now. talking about these, Herman, tell me if I should not talk about these.
You can talk about these. These are the travel brushes. These are the travel brushes which we developed at the beginning of last year. So they're also still quite new. And you are most welcome to talk about these also because, well, the travel brushes are for us a very decisive part in working with the Urbansketcher community.
Very cool. And then if it doesn't fit in, you can always edit it. But there's something I really liked about this. So Herman also sent me this set of 4 travel brushes.
Yes.
Right off the bat, there were a couple of things that surprised me and I was sure I would not like them. And the reason I would not thought I would not like them because they are too thick. Let's compare it to our standard size mop, right? The handle here is that thin compared to this. Why is this a handle? Because if you open it up, I'll show you. If you open it up, it is the cover that becomes the thick handle. And this is what I was very afraid of. Guess what? It was unfounded. Again, it's about having the correct weight at the correct place. Because this is plastic, even if it is big, the brush still sits ahead. The weight sits ahead, so it doesn't topple over when I'm painting. And not toppling over reduces fatigue. The one major thing I found, which was important, and so did everybody else, was having the shape here. Every time you pack your travel brushes without this mark, you are left to a guessing game. Well, when you're traveling, if you're traveling with family or friends, reducing this time to set up is one of the biggest barriers to entry. So this was really useful. Among all these, my go-to combination became this because it has a mop head, obviously. But if I had to have a super fine head, then this was the dynamic combo. Okay, so we have many combos. I recommended one brush. If you had one brush from the XS series, it was going to be the dagger. If you had the 1598 and the 1593, I believe,
yes,
then it was going to be these two. The sizing sometimes can throw you off. It's a size 6 and a size 2, but that's because the mop sizing does not always go along with the round.
It's totally
sizing.
different, and it's a very good thing to say, Uma, because as you rightly say, the numbers in the traditional wash brushes are totally different. And of course, this was the biggest headache for us to make a wash brush in a traditional make into a travel brush. But I'm quite happy to hear, because I know that the diameter of the case is relatively big. But we thought that we had found quite a nice balance, and it's great to hear that you are confirming our idea when making this kind of proportion in weight and in brush head.
It was very surprising. I almost started off with a negative bias against it. And the painting you have behind you, behind your left shoulder, use this brush.
Okay.
These 3 brushes together.
All right.
And I was not tired, and I had already hiked there and spent a lot of time in heat. So I was already irritated. So I was only waiting for an excuse to not like something. And despite which this combination carried me through. So I stand by it, is what I'm trying to say.
All right.
Back to these. Fine point, yes. But there are some things we should remember. Because this is such a long brush, there is a variation in where you will hold it. When you are doing something tight, we generally move our grip ahead. When I say ahead, I'm assuming the tip of the brush is the front. So you're moving it towards the head. But sometimes when I'm doing washes, I am way back. I'm going to way back because I'm going to touch the brush and push it down so that I get the widest stroke.
Yeah, yeah.
But what happens in an excess, your way back and way front is only this much travel. Whereas for this, it's a big travel. When there is a large, long travel, I have noticed your best strokes come from your shoulder, not from your wrist. So if you want to use this for a travel brush, I carry even bigger brushes, but make sure you have space to have shoulder movement. You are now going to have free strokes, larger paintings, quarter sheet or up. Smaller paintings, yes, you can, of course, do it, because look at the point. You can do miniature painting with these if you wish to. But if you're doing urban sketching and you're already free and outside, I would really recommend using your shoulders.
Okay.
With the round brush, it being fully loaded, I made a thin line with the same charge. Then I made a medium line with the same charge. So I did not go back to the palette. Both the times I could do a full 8-inch line. And the reason this 8-inch line is important is for me to know that if I charge the brush, can I complete a wash without getting a stripiness from the brush? Does it have capacity? It does. And then the third stripe down here is the thickest stripe. So the variation between this width and this width gives me the range of shapes this brush can give me, which is the round. And similarly, I did it for the square. The square is right here, the thinnest, the middle, and the widest. But here's the big kahuna. That is from the dagger brush. It is much thinner than the round and much thicker than the round too. Wow, that means it can do so many variations without me having to change the brush. This was important because I was worried about fatigue. If I'm worried about fatigue, but this brush is going to reduce the number of choices I make. So mental fatigue was going to get reduced. So I made more comparisons. I did circles and squares with the round, the square, and this is the dagger again. And guess what? The round's edges on a square were a little jagged. The squares were really fine, but the dagger could do both. Could do clean edges, round edges, and that's what sold it to me. Okay, so first show of materials. A dirty palette, like a sign of a true artist, so dirty palette. It was not really dirty. I had to practice yesterday. I might have painted several times, but every time somebody asks me to demonstrate, I still get nervous. So that was the practice. That's water, and this is the only brush I would be using. You will obviously see my brush. Okay, so there are a couple of things. Hermann, how much time do I have?
15 minutes.
More than enough. So I can do small landscape and I can show you, it really shines. Let me show you what I mean. It really shines. So I was going to do this landscape, but it really shines with abstract shapes of cows and cattle, this brush.
All right. Okay. Well, that's fine. Great.
It's not exactly urban. It's quite rural, but
yeah,
it's something that's in my head right now.
Is no problem. No problem at all.
Perfect.
I saw you were in Lake Tahoe and State Line and there. What I saw that you were traveling.
Yes, that was 2 weeks ago. But now when I was traveling last 2 weeks, I didn't post much because I did not have Wi-Fi and cell reception. Okay. I've just returned from a trip in high Sierras where we have mountains all around, and in the center you have the valleys. And in the valleys, which was actually inhabited by the first immigrants were Italian and Swiss. So the Swiss brought with them dairy making cows. And therefore, dairy making barns were set up. The first barn being in 1885. So I was really interested in the barn shape. going to be a mono. It's going to be, we're going to do a 2-color scene. And why are we doing a 2-color scene? We're doing a 2-color scene because I'm trying to emulate how an urban sketcher would feel if they were out in the countryside. They were out in the countryside, you have reduced variables to work with. What I have drawn is just the shape of the barn. The shape of the barn was exciting to me. It was exciting to me because I'm a city girl. If you saw the barn every day, I guess it's not exciting to you. But if you see it one fine day, you're like, oh, what a barn. So what's important? You want to retain the shape of the barn, which means if you're going to do negative painting, you want to make sure that the sharp edges of the barn are saved, which is where the side edges. And as you can see, we already got very fine lines from the edge of the dagger. But on the side, when I'm pulling it, I'm using the body of it. Ooh. And I usually paint at an angle, so it's even better. Ooh. It might not look like much, but the barn is coming along. We have some green that's made up of cerulean blue. Got to be careful, only some places when you're doing wet and wet. Everywhere else, you can be a little free. Okay, now you have the roof. And watch me now. I'm going to show you what I just did. This was the line. This was the body. But if you turn the brush and press on it, it actually becomes a square head, if you think about it. So you get one more width that is a fixed width, which is what I need a lot for my fences. But first, that's it. Oh, well, you're saying that doesn't look like much? No, wait. We'll get to it. Dry strokes. Can the brush do dry strokes? Let's find out at the bottom. This is a wet stroke, okay? Take pigment in your body, then wipe it off a little bit. Wipe it off on some other cloth. Now you have something called a dry stroke. What is a dry stroke? A dry stroke is pigment attaching to a paper, but in a skippy way. So you see the paper intermittently.
Shining through, yes.
Yeah, so you could do a dark dry stroke or a lighter value dry stroke. I call them skippies. So if I tell you I want a skippy 2, I want a value 2 in a dry mark. This is the hatch on the top. What do you see? It's not dry yet. Okay, so it's not dry yet, so I've started losing my edges. But I'm used to reading my paintings. If the paintings, just like customers give you feedback, you listen and you back off. That's not the right method, okay? So we go off to something else. I know one side has to be much darker. Why does it have to be much darker? Oh, it doesn't pop the roof towards you otherwise. This is the right value I want, but I don't want to go in here, but I do want that. That makes it nice. Okay, I want a dark fence ahead, but I don't want it so dark that this darkness is captured, what I mean is I want this darkness to be the center of attention. I want it to be the main actor. So all other actors will have to play second fiddle. And we don't really respect second fiddle. But without second fiddle, your first fiddle can't be so strong. Why did I do that? Oh, I cut the shape. Why? Oh, simple shapes are boring. We all know, we all have a metric of what is boring to us. Sometimes we don't have words for them, but we'll inherently know what is not boring. Okay, that pop, that pop, that pop. Ooh, what else do I need? Texture. Texture. What is texture? Texture is usually dry strokes. Dry strokes. I have a thick slurry of paint here. Let's see. Too thick? Yeah, okay. Higher value, too much higher value. Lower it, lower it. How do I lower it? Put some water in it. When you put water in it, you don't get dry strokes. So you have to bleed some out. Okay, there. And we are doing a small demo, right? We're not exactly doing super details, which we can. Too sharp? Lighten them. How do you lighten them? Take just water. Ooh. Gives it a nice aged look. Nice. This all was done with one brush. So I'm taking right now, when you're not seeing my brush, I am cleaning the brush on the side of my palette, so that I'm taking off pigment. When I'm taking off pigment, I also get a sharp line. It's very hard to see right now, but I get a very sharp. You really want that sharp body too when you're doing birds like this, because if you press your brush too hard, and if your body was really not sharp, you would get blobs like this. So let's make it worse, yeah, and try to do this.
Sorry, no, absolutely understandable. Yeah.
Got it. And I wanted to show you something. So this is a bare minimum sketch, right? Okay, so we had to get dark here. So let's do that. Why do I just touch and look away? Because first time around I had a smudge, so I'm going to check if it spreads. It's not spreading. This is the time to be tight. All other times be free. 2 rectangles, same value, one of them has to be cut. Okay. Sorry, I go into teaching mode sometimes. Good. That pulled it. Good. That's it. If you had 5-10 minutes, I don't know how long we took, but if you had 5-10 minutes, this is good enough.
You were 11, I think 11 or 12 minutes. Wonderful, Uma, perfect. And you showed very nicely the features of that dagger brush, as you call it. We call it a sword shape, but dagger is, of course, I think the right name in English. So perfect, very good.
I wanted to share with the viewers something as a gift, my gift to them. And that was how to use the unpredictableness of the strokes to be employed as cattle. Where I was in the valley, there was a lot of cattle. Again, I saw cattle growing up. There were cattle in the middle of the road, and I didn't respect them as much, or never drew a sketchbook from my bag. But in Sierra Valley, the cattle started to look really interesting. This is really abstract, but the dagger brush with its as long as you are aware of the outer edges, it really makes beautiful marks. This feels like cattle going off farther, becoming smaller and smaller.
Yes, yes, yes.
Without doing much. And it has a flow. It has a flow. You can even have a small tail, and that's all you need to actually establish. Just need to know the edges. Because it has the square edge, it gives you this very angular back, which all the cows have. All the cows are actually round back. Now I'm just simplifying for the camera. ground back, but just where their tail begins, they have a sit bone that comes up and here. And then in the middle of it, you have a tail. That's it. And if you had to have a cow which was looking away, the ears are important, and that's it. You don't need to define. This is Molly. Name the cow.
Yeah. What was the color of the cows you saw, Uma? Was it black and white, or which colors did you see on them when you were traveling?
They started off as dairy cows, but they became beef cows over time, because in 1965, some dairy regulations were passed, which stopped the dairy farming in that area.
All right, okay.
They had recently got a white bull, so the new calves were white, but none of them were mixed yet.
It doesn't belong to what you are just saying, but I just want to give you an idea. When I started in this business, we had 4 different Oxhair brushes, because every area in Europe wanted a different color of ox brushes. You had black hair in Scandinavia, you had the sable imitation hair in England, you had the bright brown in northern Italy, and you had the dark brown in southern Germany. So every area had another idea of the color of the cows. So the brushes had to exactly respect their colors. So just today, ox ear hair brushes are more or less still only a specialty in the Mediterranean countries, and in many other countries they are not known anymore. But then this was one of the most sold, because not so expensive, hair brushes for oils and so on. So just by the way, it has nothing to do with our business, but it just came into my mind.
One other question is, if this is, this was really interesting, maybe you should keep this part, because people love to absorb curious bits. When I look at the Casaneo mop, which is the 498, or any Casaneo, the hair actually start off white and go to dark, just like a natural hair would. So is this something do you bleach selectively?
No, it's colored like this. This is how we order this, how we want to have it. And if you see them before the mixing, you wouldn't think that they will give you that shade. But this is part of the mixing together then, to get this natural hair idea into the brush, because people still prefer such a color tone to a full one color item. It looks, as you just said in your paintings, it looks different. It's more life inside of the hair body.
Got it.
Yeah, if you see it here, because also you have to think every quality brush is not cut into shape. It's formed by hand, so that the tips never are cut away. That means that every bundle is shaped carefully, and you can make it more pointed, or you can make it less pointed. It depends how much you turn the brush. And Uma, you have to come to Germany and we show you around, and then you can see yourself how we make the brushes here in our factory.
I would love to come, absolutely. And if I don't get a chance, the kind of videos you have, they're informative, they're slow. So it's not slow meaning at the right pace. They don't rush the viewer. The viewer is wanting information, and you give the viewer the respect. I loved your factory tours, in COVID tours, how you make brushes tours, how your master brush makers size them, weigh the hair and everything. But I also like the fact that you have certain very good quality videos on how to fix brushes if something goes wrong. That one is really important for people who travel with long tip brushes in travel. And sometimes the tip gets squished. So I would suggest for anybody who wants to know
Uma,
how to
this
fix
is always very important if it's a natural hair, don't put it into hot water. If it's a synthetic fiber, hot water will make the fiber get longer again and straighten out again. And if it's not really put to an angle, it will come with the time to a straight line again. So, but this is just with a little short dip into nearly boiling water, and then you can repair a lot of your synthetic brushes if you are carefully. But don't burn your finger. This is something you have to be careful about.
Fantastic. How can I help further? I can talk about the other mops, 498, but up to you.
I think this is now more than enough. It's a lot of material we have, Sebastian, or what do you think?
Yes.
And I think we will put this together, and then we see, Uma, and maybe then we can take a talk another time about the 498 or something like that. But you did a lot of work, and you really, how can I say, pronounced nicely the features which were important to you. And of course, we are brush makers. We are theoretical people about brushes, but we are not on the road. We are not a painter like you. And of course, we have no idea to paint abstract cattle. This is something we do not know what we have to learn. You know, this was very interesting for me.
I just wanted to show you, you can cut this out, but these are the same scenes painted with one brush at a time. And it just kept on going on and on and on. And I have several of these sketches that I did until I got the hang of it. But I enjoyed experimenting.
Uma, thank you very much. Thank you for your time. Thank you for the great lesson and for the great advice. And I'm looking forward to talk to you soon again. All the best from Nuremberg to California.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I enjoyed it very much.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye.